before, my name is Megan. I am a registered dietitian and manager at the Wellness Center. And today we are doing some prep ahead recipes. So today we are going to make some recipes that you can easily make completely ahead of time, or you can prep the ingredients ahead of time. These are some of my go-tos for, we're going to do a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And this all has to do with the webinar last week where we talked about meal prepping and meal planning, because that's important nowadays. We all live really jumbled, crazy lifestyles, and it's really great to have some go-to recipes. The other things I like about today's 3 recipes are that they're very modifiable and they're very forgiving. If you mess up, if you skip an ingredient, if you swap an ingredient, I'll tell you all about how to do those things as we go, but just know you can really personalize these. And so that was part of what we talked about in the webinar last week too, and the recording is up on the website, is knowing how to personalize a dish or a theme based on your own personal needs, your own personal preferences. So with that, let's get going. Our first recipe is going, oh, and I will send out the recipes to everyone. Our first recipe is the berry baked yogurt. This is like cheesecake for breakfast. I love this recipe. My kids love this recipe. We do it in so many different ways that I would say we have it sometimes weekly, if not every other week for breakfast. And I just change it up just enough that it kind of makes everybody happy and it doesn't feel like we're having the same thing every day all the time. Also, what I love about this one is if you're not quite a yogurt fan, if you're kind of like, yogurt bowls, not my favorite texture, this gives you the benefit of the protein and the calcium and all the awesome micronutrients of yogurt without the texture of yogurt, because again, we're going to bake it into kind of cheesecakey. So this is the yogurt I'm using today. It's Trader Joe's thick and creamy strained plain Greek yogurt. It's got 15 grams of protein per serving. It is plain, so it is unsweetened. And we're going to do a cup and a half. Now, I have done this recipe so many times that I can kind of eyeball it by now. And again, it's forgiving. So if you put a little less than a cup and a half, a little more than a cup and a half, kind of doesn't matter. We'll do a little bit more than that. But yeah, your first time making any recipe, I highly recommend actually measuring it out. That should be enough. Let me rinse my hand of that yogurt explosion. The other thing I love about yogurt is it is high in calcium. It also has some vitamin D in it and magnesium. So it's great for the bones. It's great for our joints and tissues. Okay, this also calls for egg, which is also adding to our protein in the morning, because that is the number one thing that I see people lack in the mornings is protein. Now, eggs are hard to find right now, or they're very expensive. I have stumbled across these lovely little things. They are liquid whole eggs instead of liquid egg whites, which is usually what we find. These are literally liquid whole eggs, pasture raised, which is really key. And it just makes life a little easier because they're already cracked. They're basically cracked eggs. And that's all that's in here too, is pasture raised whole eggs with citric acid for freshness. That's all that's in here. So, and it does tell you the equivalent. So 5 large eggs equals 1 cup, and there's approximately 10 eggs in this container. So I am going to measure about 1 cup. You could do 4 eggs in this dish as well. The recipe literally calls for 4 or 5 eggs. It really just depends. I've done it both ways, and it's a bit fluffier with 5 eggs. So I usually lean on 5 eggs, but it doesn't really matter. Look at that dark orange color. Love that. Love that for nutrition. I'm going to take that out. All right, so we've got protein upon protein upon protein. We've got some carbohydrate from our yogurt because yogurt is a natural source of carbohydrate from the milk. But we're going to add a little bit more fun. We're going to do a protein powder because if you think of it, this recipe is going to serve 3 to 5 servings, depending on how hungry you are. So it's only a cup and a half of yogurt. So now I've gone for my, 20-ish grams of protein with 4 or 5 eggs is probably 20-ish grams. I'm going to divide that now by 4 people. So that 40 grams total just turned into only 10 per serving. So we do, even though it feels like, wow, I'm adding a lot of protein to this dish, if I'm remembering that I'm cutting this up into portions, I still probably need a little bit more protein. I'm gonna add, this is Just Ingredients brand. The brand is literally called Just Ingredients. And they have all kinds of fun flavors of protein powders, and their protein powders are all whey plus collagen. So you're getting the benefit of both of those. They're grass-fed, and they have other types of like cool micronutrients added in. Like they have in this one, where's her ingredients? Chia seed protein, and then they're sweetened with monk fruit. And she has just really cool flavors. She has like lemon flavor and I don't know, cinnamon flavor and snickerdoodle. This brand just has really cool flavors. The strawberries and cream is heavenly. It is so good. And my kids love that it turns everything pink. So we literally will add this to like anything I want them to eat. We'll be like, we're gonna have pink milk, we're gonna have pink yogurt, we're gonna have pink pancakes. And now I'm adding a lot more protein to that as well. Now you could add vanilla protein powder, you could add a different brand, it doesn't really matter, but we're amping up that protein so that when I cut it into slices, I'm not now back down 10, 15 grams of protein. In order to make it baked, we do need a little form of starch. So I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of chickpea flour. Chickpea flour or garbanzo bean flour, depending on the brand you're buying, it's the same thing. This one is Bob's Red Mill and it's called garbanzo fava flour. So it's a mix of garbanzo and fava beans. Gives you a lot of fiber, which is cool because this dish is pretty low in fiber. So you're getting 6 grams of fiber per serving here. So you're getting fiber and protein from our flour. If you don't have chickpea flour, you can easily use almond flour here. You could actually use just regular flour. It would do the job, but we're always looking for the most nutrient dense option. So I love chickpea flour for these. Don't ever swap chickpea flour for regular flour in regular baking, like in a muffin or cake, because there's no gluten, so it won't rise. So it has starch in it to help kind of bind it together, but it won't rise. So you never want to just do immediate swaps with things that you're wanting to like become big and fluffy like breads. But this is going to be flat like a cheesecake, but we don't care. Okay, we've got our flours. We're going to add a little flavor. The recipe calls for vanilla extract. I like to do a little bit of lemon and vanilla, or sometimes almond extracts. I'm very into extracts because, oh, this is a new vanilla. They give so much flavor in a very little bit and can often mean that you can reduce the sugar. So I just did vanilla and lemon there. I'm going to whisk this all up carefully so I don't get yogurt and stuff outside my bowl. I usually do this in a much bigger bowl, but I like to show you guys glass bowls when I'm doing cooking classes, and I don't have a really big glass bowl. I should probably invest in one given I teach cooking classes. So this, a lot of times, it's so easy and quick, especially once you've made it a couple of times, that oftentimes I won't meal prep this ahead of time. I will just whisk this up in the morning real quick. It takes about 30 to 35 minutes to bake. So what I'll typically do is like I get up real early and I work out. So after my workout, I'll make this. I'll pop it in the oven while I'm doing my shower and getting dressed and while the kids are waking up. And then by the time everybody's downstairs and ready to eat, this is popping out of the oven. So that's usually what I do, but I'm going to show you today how you can really easily just meal prep it as well. I'm seeing question, what are the measurements for the protein powder and vanilla? Vanilla is a teaspoon. Any extract is usually a teaspoon. And then the protein powder is a scoop of whatever your protein powder is, 1 or 2 scoops. Kind of doesn't matter really, as long as you're getting a full serving of protein. So depending on your brand, if 1 scoop is 1 serving or if 2 scoops is 1 serving, you add the serving. All right, nice and thick. Just want to make sure there's no clumps there. Now I'm just going to spray my baking dish. This is just avocado oil spray. And I'm going to pour this into my baking dish. All right. And there have been many times where I just pop it in like this, knowing that I'm going to top it with all kinds of goodness when I serve it. But I did have some frozen blueberries today. So a cup of any fruit of your liking goes over the top. I love blueberries because you can put them literally in frozen. Like these are frozen. They're freezing my hands right now. Um, they don't have to be cooked because they're going to cook up in the oven. You could put bananas in here, strawberries. I mean, literally, you do whatever you want with this recipe. That's what's so cool about it for meal prep reasons. Um, Also, if you have kids or grandkids, or if you just like fun food, you can make this all different colors. So you can do chocolate protein powder. You can blend the whole thing in a blender with spinach and make green for, St. Patrick's Day and things like that. Like you can go crazy with the mix by just adding a little color. My oven is already set for 350. Be able to really show you that without spilling it, but there's kind of what it looks like. And I'm going to pop it in my oven at 350 for 35 minutes. Okay, now it's going. So again, you could be making this in the morning while you're getting ready, or you can prep ahead and just once it's cooled, cut it into squares and save it in your fridge for the next day. I've done that many times where actually I've doubled the recipe in a bigger baking dish, like in a 9 by, what is that, 8 by 11 or 9 by 13. And then we have breakfast for today, and then I save it for tomorrow, and it's just as good leftover. I will say, so they come out like kind of thick squares. I like it with a little bit of topping. They're kind of great for on the run. If you got to eat in the car real quick, it's perfect. But if I'm sitting down with a plate, I kind of like to put something on top of it. So I like whipped cream, another little dollop of yogurt, a drizzle of peanut butter. I really like some sprinkles of nuts or granola on top. That's my kids' favorite way of eating it. So there's a whole lot you can do with that. And I see just joined, had challenge logging out. I know, Nancy, I'm sorry. I think there were issues with our link today. So we are recording and we just made a baked yogurt. So baked berry yogurt for our meal prep breakfast. And don't worry, I'll send out recipes. But just to recap for some of the new people, it was Greek yogurt, eggs, protein powder, chickpea flour, vanilla, and fruit. And it's baking right now. So we are going to skip on over to dinner now. This stuff out of my way. All right, this is one of my favorite meal prep dinners because I kind of never make it the same way ever. I always mess with it. Technically, it's called chicken broccoli Alfredo casserole. But I use different vegetables. It's not always chicken. Sometimes it's ground beef. It's not always broccoli. Sometimes it's cauliflower. Like you can literally do whatever you want with this recipe. I am following it a little bit more to the T today so that you guys can see the actual recipe. So the recipe calls for 4 cups of cooked shredded chicken. Now I have this, I know it looks like a to-go container, but it's because I reuse these all the time. I had cooked a chicken in the Instant Pot over the weekend and shredded it up, and I had a lot more, and my husband took some for his lunch yesterday, and I was like, that's for my cooking class. So I added in some of the leftover chicken sausage that we had from yesterday, and it's going to be kind of like a chicken sausage dish. But this is a great example of I had talked in my webinar last week about prepping ahead, like by cooking a whole chicken, by doing bigger batches of protein that you're going to eat so that you have leftovers. If you freeze shredded chicken, cut up beef, whatever it is, you can pull it out really easily and throw it into casseroles like this because it's already cooked and ready, okay? It doesn't have to be beautiful. So I have this shredded chicken. I do always look for pasture raised whenever I can on the chicken. It also calls for 2 heads of broccoli, a pack of mushrooms, and half of an onion. So let's make meal prep easier. This is what I did this morning. I defrosted a bag of broccoli florets. They're just frozen broccoli. And this is a fancy little mixture that I get from Trader Joe's. It's their mushroom medley. And it is a variety of different types of mushrooms, olive oil, parsley, salt, and garlic. How lovely! That's so yummy, and it is all done for you, and you can literally just put it into a pan and saute it up with, and it already has oil in it, so it's done. What I did this morning is I dumped both of these onto a baking sheet, tossed them with olive oil, put it in the oven at 400 for 30 minutes. And I just stirred it up. And it's not the world's most beautiful roasted broccoli. Like if I were to eat this as a side dish with just roasted broccoli, I like my broccoli to be kind of blackened and crispy. When you roast frozen broccoli, they just get kind of soft, but that's perfect for a casserole. So if you just need to put something in the oven and walk away and not think about it and just have some soft cooked veggies with yummy flavor, for a casserole, that's a great way of doing it for meal prep so that you don't have to be standing there watching it, tossing it, that kind of thing. It's just really, really easy pre-cut for you. So that's what I did for this particular dish. And again, you could do cauliflower, carrots, bell pepper, like any vegetable you want, just get it sauteed or roasted to where it's soft and basically pre-cooked. So here's my big bowl of broccoli and mushrooms. And the mushrooms is already in that yummy garlickiness. So I just added a little bit of paprika and sea salt with the olive oil just to flavor it up a bit. Okay, so I already have my cooked vegetables and my chicken. I'm gonna make my Alfredo sauce. This is yet another thing that you could prep Alfredo sauce ahead of time, no problem. Alfredo sauce is really easy to make a vegan version of if you soak cashews and then blend them with nutritional yeast, garlic, and a little water, like that, and lemon juice. That's if you Google vegan Alfredo sauce, it's really simple, but there is the time component there. You don't always have time to make your own Alfredo sauce. So I'm always kind of on the hunt for jarred sauces that will make my life a little easier. This is a new one. I usually buy the Alfredo sauce by Primal Kitchens. I love theirs because it uses a good healthy oil. They don't use colorings or sugar. But when I was at the store, right next to the Primal Kitchens ones was this brand, Sonoma Gourmet Creamy Spinach Alfredo. And it was $1 cheaper, and I love their ingredients too. So it's vegetable stock, cream, buttermilk, spinach, expeller pressed canola oil. So we've talked a little bit about oils in the past. If you're new to that topic with me, canola oil in and of itself is not a problem. It's when we heat press it that it becomes inflammatory. So expeller press means that it was cold pressed. So it's expeller pressed canola oil, Parmesan cheese, garlic, sea salt, shallots, onion powder. So ingredients I really like. So granted, I have not tried it yet. I'll have to report back on the flavor of it, but I'm always looking for other things that are fun and exciting. So you're gonna mix your jar of Alfredo sauce, which is about 2 cups worth, with a cup of broth. Now, I almost always have homemade bone broth in my fridge or my freezer. And the reason I have this one in my fridge this time is because I made my Instant Pot chicken. So I throw it all back in the Instant Pot and make broth. Broth it comes in so handy. You can make rice with it, sauces with it, not just soup. So a cup of bone broth or veggie broth or whatever broth you have, but the more nutrition, the better. And the only reason we're adding the broth is just to thin it out a little bit because Alfredo sauce is known for being pretty thick. So if you were to make your own Alfredo sauce, if you were scratch cooking that, you could just make it with extra broth and make it thin to begin with, and then you could skip this step for this recipe. The other thing with modifying for your own taste preferences is, let's say you don't like Alfredo sauce, or let's say you're dairy-free, so the cream in this recipe is not going to work and you don't have time to make your own vegan Alfredo sauce. Swap it for a tomato sauce. Make a tomato sauce-based casserole instead. Use like a pizza sauce or a pesto, and you're just going to need to add more broth to the pesto to thin it out a bit more. So there's so much you can do here. Whisk that up. It's got spinach in it, so it's kind of sticking to my whisk. Okay. Get your baking dish. And where did I put my spray? You're gonna spray it up. And just toss it all together. I should probably have a spoon. Add my veggies. Add my protein. Now, if you wanted to add some starch, some carb here, the recipe does say you have an option to add 2 cups of cooked wild rice. So yet another meal prep idea. If you're gonna make wild rice, make a huge batch of it. Do the whole bag instead of just 1 cup, and then put it into freezer sections. Then you can defrost some wild rice and throw it in here. Easy for meal prep. You could throw quinoa in here. Doesn't have to be wild rice. I already have a bunch of roasted sweet potatoes in my fridge because we made sweet potatoes over the weekend and I made way too much. So we're gonna have that on the side of this casserole, so I don't need an additional source of starch. So this can be with or without starch. And then you just pour in your sauce. Just kind of, it doesn't have to be perfect, but stir to make sure like there's no real dry spots in there. Ah, did I get that on? You can add other flavors if you want to add some paprika, if you want to add garlic, you can add that in. But like I said, my veggies were already seasoned, and this Alfredo sauce should be pretty flavorful. So I think we're good. So meal prep wise, I could stop there. This is usually what I do is I'll put this together the day before, the weekend, with usually whatever veggies I happen to have, and usually chicken, but sometimes it's some sort of other protein that I've made double of. And I wrap this with foil and I put it in my fridge. And then when I'm ready to cook, or oftentimes I'll make this on a day where I know I'm going to be late coming home. So I'll have my husband just pull it out of the fridge, pop it in the oven. I always forget exactly what it is. You set it at 400 for about 20 to 30 minutes until it's kind of bubbling. My favorite thing to do is then you put some Parmesan cheese on top and pop it in your broiler for 5 to 10 minutes. And then it's real cheesy on the top as well. That's optional. It's still good without it. And again, you serve that with a salad. You serve it with some, sweet potatoes if you don't have any starch in there. But this is a good 6 servings of a really nutritious dish that's so easy to prep ahead. The other thing you can do with this concept is use your leftovers for this. So let's say at the end of the week you have, half a pound of ground turkey that you had made for tacos and no one ate it, and you have a bit of roasted bell pepper and a bit of roasted carrots from other meals. Throw it into a casserole dish with a jar of sauce, and you have a whole nother meal with all this random stuff put together that usually tastes pretty darn good as long as you have a good tasting sauce. So for me, I'm actually going to cook this up tonight for dinner. So I'll wrap it in foil and put it in the fridge until later tonight. And then it's a 20-minute meal, just baking. All right, looks like there were some questions before we move on. Chicken casserole looks amazing. Oh, I wish I had a restaurant too. Although I don't know that I want the stress of owning a restaurant. Maybe I could meal prep and recipe prep for a restaurant. Make someone else do all that work. All right, last dish is lunch. This is yet another of my favorites. You guys are really getting a sneak peek into how my family eats on a regular basis. We are gonna make Mediterranean tuna salad, although I'm doing it with salmon. I get these salmon cans from Costco. It's just the Kirkland wild pink salmon. It's hard to see with the lighting right there. And they come in, I think it's a 6-pack or an 8-pack. They're so cheap for wild fish, and you get all these awesome omegas. But you could easily do wild tuna, you could do oysters, you could do sardines in here if you are someone who really needs to amp up your omega-3s with heart disease. Sardines are like the cream of the crop, and a lot of people don't like the taste of them plain, but if you mix it into like a tuna salad, but with sardines, that can be a way to kind of de-sardine the flavor. So anyway, I'm using salmon, but the original recipe does call for 2 cans of tuna. So I already drained them just to make life a little easier. And this is where you get to do whatever you want, which is the theme of all of my cooking classes. You can add anything. So the recipe calls for cannellini beans. I didn't have any cannellini beans. I have black beans, so I'm going to add them in. You could ditch the beans. If you have a lot of gas, IBS stuff, just ditch them. But they are a great source of fiber and nutrients. And it's a way to get kind of that concept of plant-based without going completely vegan, is adding in beans and legumes. So that's about a half can of black beans. And then I'm just going to add all of my other toppings. So this is some green olives that I chopped up. That was about 5 green olives. About a quarter cup of sun-dried tomatoes that I cut up. Sun-dried tomatoes are an amazing source of lycopene for our eyes. Cucumber, great source of fiber there, and some hydration. That was about, I don't know, 10 slices of cucumber that I chopped up. Some capers. Capers are such an underused little food item, I feel like, because they're really salty. And so I think a lot of people are love them or hate them. But man, they have so much good nutrition in there along with the salt. And as long as you're not on a salt restriction for medication reasons, salt that's naturally in a food can be really good for our heart and our cardiovascular system, as long as we're not like pouring on extra salt everywhere we go. Okay, you could also add roasted bell pepper. You could also add chopped artichoke heart. Think of your favorite Greek dish and throw in those ingredients. And what's awesome is then when we mix this up, it's ready to eat as is. You don't have to like add it to a salad or have carrot sticks on the side. I feel like whenever I see people have tuna, it's just like tuna and mayonnaise, which is a good source of protein, but it's not very nutrient dense. And so then you still have to think of all the things going alongside your tuna. Whereas instead, if I'm mixing it all in, I don't have to worry about what's on the side. So depending on how you like your tuna salad, salmon salad, you could leave it like this. I like to add a little bit of olive oil, like a teaspoon to 3 teaspoons, 1 to 3 teaspoons. Lemon juice, about a tablespoon to give it kind of that Mediterranean vibe. I always have lemon juice just squeezed in my fridge. I like dill, but you could do basil, you could do thyme in here. Oregano is really yummy. And then I have this thing called avocado toast seasoning that I just found. And it's sea salt, garlic, black pepper, red pepper, and that's it. And it's just kind of a yummy mix to give it some saltiness with some other flavor. Oops. And this is done. So here's my favorite thing to do with this is I put this all into a big glass Tupperware for my week. This is usually going to feed me. A pepper got my throat. This is going to feed me usually 3 meals worth. So an adult woman eating 3 meals worth is usually what this recipe will give me. I like to either put it on a bed of salad, or my favorite is I buy those little baby gem romaine lettuce heads, and all I have to do is take my container with me to work with my little baby gem lettuce head, and I tear off little leaves and I put it inside, and they're like little lettuce tacos. They're so good that way. You could also get some high fiber crackers and use them for crackers. You could put them into wraps or on a sandwich. My kids love this if I put it on a sandwich on like an open faced toast and put cheese on top and do a tuna melt that way. They usually won't eat it on its own because there's so much stuff in it. You know, they're usually like, what's going on here, Mom? But if I cover it with cheese, they love it because all the flavors are there. So you can do all these cool things with it. It is a bit more salad-y, salad-esque than your typical salmon or like tuna salad that's creamy. So if you like it creamier, you can add hummus to it. That's my favorite thing to make it creamier is I'll add some dollops of hummus and mix away until it's nice and creamy. If hummus is not the flavor vibe you're looking for, you could do a combination of mayonnaise and Greek yogurt, plain, not vanilla, and that gives you that creamy mayonnaise vibe with a little less mayo, a little bit more protein. And that is easy. So we just made lunch for a couple of days. We have several servings worth of breakfast in the oven, and I've got dinner ready to go. It's going to feed 4 people, probably six meals. We could probably have left over the next day for dinner. And it's only been half an hour. Our baked yogurt isn't even totally ready. So let's take a look, since that's a wrap for class. Let's just take a look at the yogurt real quick. It's still pretty gelatinous, but you can see the idea that's coming to play here, and that those outsides are starting to bake up really nicely. So I still have 15 minutes left, so I'm not going to make you wait and see the outcome, but how cool that in 30 minutes we made 3 meals that are super nutrient dense, and you could have probably made even double all of that and had yourself ready for the whole week. So let me catch your questions. Oh, we made it through all the questions. If anyone has questions, put them in there. I will work backwards and show some ingredients since we had some people join late. Pasture-raised whole eggs. Not that I have anything against regular eggs, but they're hard to find. And sometimes it's really nice to have a liquid. So I like these a lot. This is the brand Just Ingredients. Their strawberries and cream protein powder is to die for. Trader Joe's strained thick and creamy Greek yogurt is so good. It really is thick and creamy. They don't have it every time though. So sometimes. Garbanzo fava flour, or you could do chickpea flour or garbanzo bean flour. This was Sonoma Gourmet Creamy Spinach Alfredo. Both of these frozen veggie blends were from Trader Joe's. They're mushroom medley and they're just regular broccoli. And those were the brands that I used. Oh, and then the Costco Kirkland wild caught Alaska salmon cans. That's it, you guys. That went so quickly. I can't believe it. So it looks like no other questions, in which case, please cook these up and I will send out the recording and the recipes. I'm going to actually email them out to everybody as soon as I can get the recording all synced up, since so many people, I think, had trouble with the recording link today. But yeah, tell me what variations you're making. Send me your pictures. Go on Instagram at St. Jude Wellness Center or follow me at RD Megan and kind of show me what you're up to. And then where do you buy the protein powder? From their website. So Just Ingredients is the name of the brand, and you Google Just Ingredients. I think it's justingredients.com, and I buy straight from them. I don't think that they sell anywhere else, like on Amazon or anywhere. So they have just their website. They have, I usually buy their strawberries and cream and their French vanilla. Let me see. Yeah, French vanilla protein powder. Those are my 2 favorites from them. But they have all kinds of like weird, interesting flavors of things. They have like lime and snickerdoodle. They have a lemon one that's kind of good. So that's where I get them. All right. Looks like that's it. So have a great day. Happy cooking. I will see you all later. Thanks for joining. Bye.